I just unlocked this door and entering this property for the first time. We're going to walk through this property. We're going to look at it through the eyes of a potential tenant. So we're not going to look at it through the eyes of the property owner, the landlord. We're not going to look at this property through my eyes, the property manager. Instead, we're going to look at it the way a potential tenant is going to look at it. So let me flip my camera around. That way you guys can see what I see. Out of the gate, we see a lot of leftover belongings. So this is a new property for us. I've been in here once before. The owner had her friend living here, and her friend apparently didn't really do a good job at removing her personal belongings, and it's quite dirty. So the owner is a little hesitant to charge her friend to have the place professionally cleaned, because I guess it is a friend, and it is a little awkward to have to bill somebody that you have a friendship with, to charge them for the housekeeping, as would typically be done. I don't know if you guys can see all this like dead bugs on the floor. There's a lot of dirt. I mean, these are all things. There's some serious discolorations on this wall. And the point of this conversation, we have cobwebs up here, is these are all the things that a potential tenant is going to see. They're going to see all this uncleanliness, and this just isn't marketable. So, if a potential tenant, through the eyes of a potential tenant, would be that they would want you to install a hot tub. Do you install a hot tub? No, not necessarily so. If the cost of a hot tub is going to be more than what a potential tenant is going to pay you for, then absolutely not. You would not go ahead and spend the money on installing a hot tub. But if a potential tenant is going to pay you more rent and it's going to reduce your vacancy, then absolutely, it would be worth $300. Actually, this is probably about a $240 thing. So, tenants just don't want to see this, and nor should they have to be the one to have to clean up this shampoo scum that's kind of left behind, and all these personal items. And there's water condensation drips, on the walls. The walls are badly marred. What tenants most want is cleanliness. And the sidebar to this is, if we give this property to an incoming tenant in this condition, how can we expect the tenant to care for this property as they live here? So if we actually don't have respect for the property, it's a really hard thing for us to ask the tenant, to have respect for the property as well. You can see some personal belongings left behind. All in all, it's not that dirty. The tenant, obviously, I don't know how good of a friend. She could have removed her personal belongings. She certainly could have swept and wiped things down. So, just leftover boxes, items that she didn't want, and she couldn't be considerate enough to throw out. Now, the question is whose responsibility is it going to be to remove these items? We have some rugs here, other unwanted items, bunch of little knickknacks, which is also the uncleanliness. That's the problem. And again, if we give this property to a tenant in this state, how can we expect them to take care of the property? And what happens when they move out? So when the tenant moves out, we're going to come in here, we're going to do a move out inspection, and we're going to say, hey, this property should have been cleaned. It should be tenant ready, and we're going to charge that tenant for those items that are beyond normal wear and tear. And if it's not clean, we're going to charge them for that. And that's hardly fair, considering the state that we would be giving the property to. Now, is it fair for this current owner to have to pay this? No. But that's kind of the choice he made once he decided to rent to a friend. It's never really a great idea. I do think that whether or not the exiting tenant is willing to pay to have this property cleaned, whether or not the owner is willing to bill the exiting tenant, the question is a financial one. Will the owner make more money by getting this property professionally cleaned or not? And the answer is clearly yes. So he's going to get a tenant much faster, and vacancy is incredibly expensive, so get more rent, and so get a better quality tenant. Again, going back to a tenant's not going to take care of a property that we clearly don't care about. So I definitely recommend looking at your properties through the eyes of a potential tenant. Not as a property owner, not as a property manager, as myself, but through the eyes of a potential tenant. What do they see? And obviously this property is not a place that a tenant would necessarily want to move into. They would have a significant amount of cleaning just to get rid of somebody else's filth.